In the news this week, activists are once again demanding justice and punishment for police over the death of Miss Ju, a WAMA News exclusive.
Sued for a song, Clive Palmer ordered to pay copyright damages.
WA small businesses to receive compensation from government after lockdown measures.
Citizens over 50 are encouraged to roll up for WA, plus Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Leung and Kit Sanders. Good evening, the exclusive story in a moment. First, a brief update into the latest COVID situation. Perth has avoided a snap lockdown tonight after recording another day of 0 cases. The Premier has made the announcement in the morning, but several restrictions were brought in based on expert health advice.
The fact we have picked up these cases early means we can avoid moving into a lockdown at this point. But it is possible this could change by tomorrow or the day after. Our health authorities have asked for some more time today and overnight to do further contact tracing and get test results for other close contacts. Our restrictions in place, our use of masks and the ability of our contact tracers and testing gives us the ability to hold a decision on a lockdown decision. Our restrictions in place, our use of masks and the ability of our contact tracers and testing gives us the ability to hold on a lockdown decision this afternoon. Our contact tracing team has been ramped up. Our testing clinics will also ramp up.
Nightclubs and casinos will remain closed. Meanwhile, face masks continue to be mandatory until the 8th of May. The Eagles and Dockers Derby went ahead without audiences to avoid large gatherings. The government has also released an updated list of potential exposure sites on the Healthy WA website, with citizens urged to get tested and self-isolate immediately if they went to the listed locations. Meanwhile, AMA WA President Dr. Andrew Miller will have an exclusive commentary on this matter coming up later in this bulletin. Stay tuned. 7 years after Ms. Ju's tragic death in custody, local activists are once again demanding accountability and punishment for the police officers involved. Advocate Jerry Giorgato's comment comes after a doctor was found guilty of medical misconduct in Ms. Ju's case.
Human rights advocate Jerry Giorgatos has again called for police accountability over Ms. Ju's tragic death in custody, after a doctor who diagnosed her was found guilty of professional misconduct and was fined $30,000. His medical license has not been suspended. Ms. Ju was a Yamaji woman from South Headland. In 2014, she was in police custody with an elevated heart rate and in pain. Less than a day later, she died of an infection.
The police have never been held accountable for their actions or lack of inactions. Their actions where they failed Miss Ju and their inactions where they didn't respond to Miss Ju.
Mr. Giorgato says that the police failed in their duty of care of Miss Ju to a criminal degree and accountability is needed.
Miss Ju was in the custody of the police for 40 hours. That's where she was under their watchful eye. And that watchful eye couldn't see past its racism, couldn't see past its classism, and allowed assumptions and prejudices.
Jerry believes that the police who helped Miss Ju in custody in 2014 before her death were criminally negligent and were unable to overcome their racial and classist bias to save her life.
The way she was abused, the way she was neglected, the way she was degraded, the way she was carted, hauled, dropped on her head, the failure of CPR to be applied, that accountability is of a criminal intent.
Ms. Ju's tragedy has sparked years of unrest within WA's Indigenous community over the death in custody issue. Despite recent reform made by the state government over fine imprisonment, WA is yet to reduce the number of Aboriginal incarceration. Helene Fong, WAMA News.
Clive Palmer, the controversial billionaire and former businessman, has been ordered to pay $1.5 million to Universal Music in damages for copyright.
Mr. Palmer has a reputation of bringing civil cases against many people, including the West Australian government. However, this time he's found himself on the receiving end of a lawsuit. In 2019, Mr. Palmer used the tune and lyrics of the 1984 Twisted Sister hit, We're Not Gonna Take It, in an advertising campaign for his now failed political endeavour, United Australia Party. Mr. Palmer attempted to claim in court that the song was based on the tune of the Christmas carol O Come All Ye Faithful, before retracting this statement and arguing that the campaign piece was legal under parody and satire defences. The state government is working on a financial compensation package targeting small businesses who've lost income due to the snap lockdown over the Anzac Day long weekend. The compensation will be $2,000 for those affected, but the Chamber of Commerce and Industry says that the current amount is not enough.
The Chamber of Commerce and Industry has conducted a survey revealing the expected impact of the latest lockdown is an average of $8,060 across the small business sector.
On average, small businesses suffered losses of around $8,000, some of them up to $55,000. That's why the Chamber of Commerce and Industry WA called on the state government to provide up to $5,000 in compensation to those businesses affected.
Premier Mark McGowan announced a further $2,000 in assistance to each small business adversely affected by the latest COVID-19 lockdown. But experts say this will only cover approximately a quarter of the losses across the board. The government has already provided $1.2 billion to small business relief in stimulus, electricity bill relief and payroll tax breaks, but many businesses are still struggling and even going under.
Look, to the government's credit, they've listened to the Chamber of Commerce and Industry's recommendations. We can't comment on the thought process or what went into the government's thinking with its first set of compensation measures. We do appreciate the fact that they have instituted a grant-based system with significantly more compensation.
The Small Business Association of Australia says that we will likely not know the full impact of business closures until after the pandemic, as many businesses shut down quietly and do not declare bankruptcy. Across all WA businesses, an average loss of $25,200 is expected across the 7-day period of lockdown. Helene Fong, WAMN News.
Western Australians aged over 50 will be eligible to be vaccinated and are encouraged to roll up for WA. Monday, May 17th is the official launch of the new Roll Up for WA advertisement campaign, by which the McGowan government is encouraging people to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. Under the program, the jab will be available at mass vaccination clinics in Perth Airport and the Claremont Showgrounds. Later in the program, further clinics will be established in Joondalup and Kwinana area. People seeking vaccination will be able to book an appointment through the state's 13COVID telephone number. Around 91,000 vaccinations have been given in WA so far.
The more people we can vaccinate, the safer our community will be, both within Western Australia but also in relation to our international border situation. So we want everyone to take the opportunity to really now step up and roll up for WA. We're also asking people to book themselves into these clinics if they can. Ring the 13 COVID line. They'll be able to provide you with a time slot and a place for you to get your vaccine, and that will be really important in terms of managing the people coming through.
The last year has been unlike any other for many students across the world and Australia. This most recent lockdown has highlighted the effects and uncertainty that many seeking an education face. Jamie Wallace is a student at Curtin University studying physiotherapy and says it's hard to switch between online learning and in-person classes every lockdown.
I think it's very confusing and kind of disorientating, going back and forth all the time.
Miss Wallace also says that there is a lack of structure to online learning, but the assistance just doesn't seem accessible.
It's a lot harder to just get feedback from your teachers because you can't just ask them in class. You've got to send emails and follow up on things. So it's a lot harder to know what's going on and ask questions that are necessary for your assignments and stuff.
With only 2.1 million doses of the vaccine administered and no one yet fully vaccinated in Australia, COVID is expected to be an issue for at least another year. How students are meant to get a quality education through multiple lockdowns is still a question that remains to be answered.
Businesses began expanding and reopening yesterday as COVID restrictions eased at midnight. People flocked back to patronise Perth's businesses, bringing much-needed money back to our economy. While masks are still required indoors, most venues are able to return to pre-lockdown capacity and private events can now host 30 people at home without the need for masks. Sports and recreation can now return to operation. Elective surgeries have also resumed, and patients in hospital and care facilities will once again be able to receive visitors.
Wreckage of an Indonesian submarine that lost contact with the nation earlier in the month has been found 800 metres below the surface. Authorities say that the craft was found in 3 pieces, and it is presumed that none of the 53 crewmen survived. The KRI Nanggala 420 was conducting torpedo drills off the coast of Bali. There are several theories as to why the submarine disappeared, including powerful internal waves, electrical blackouts, and even a foreign missile. President Joko Widodo has expressed his condolences and deep sorrow to the families of the crew. President Joe Biden has addressed Congress, calling on the Assembly to enact legislation that would allow all students to attend community college without cost. This comes as part of the Biden administration's American Families Plan, which will cost the nation $1.8 trillion, and attempts to revitalize the economy while reducing poverty in the US. In addition, the plan would mandate 12 weeks of paid parental, family and sick leave to all Americans and expand tax cuts for working-class families.
The Mars Ingenuity helicopter has flown across the Red Planet at speeds of 2 meters per second this week, testing the capability of its autonomous navigation system. This amazing feat comes in spite of Mars' atmosphere being less than 1% the density of Earth's, meaning its rotors must spin at more than 5 times that of a helicopter. NASA is now planning the craft's 4th flight to further push the limits of Ingenuity capabilities and give us never-before-seen understanding of our closest planetary neighbour.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. You can follow the latest on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Sarah will be back next week. Until then, from Kit and myself, wish you good health, good night, and see you next Sunday.
Have a good night.